Alright, so there was a couple people that commented on the last video with the RX-7 saying that putting a bigger radiator and laying it down isn't going to make a difference because I'm not having like an expansion tank or anything like that. I'm pretty sure I mentioned in the video that I am going to be putting an expansion tank in. I've got this little cutie right here, nice Mazir cap, and we're going to be filling the system from this. So the top of the radiator is completely obsolete now. This is now the top of the radiator. This is where we're going to fill everything through. And if the pressure ever gets too much, it's going to go to this overflow here, or this recovery tank, I should say. So I am going to be running both of these. So it's important that this is at the highest point of the system. Not really a whole lot of room back here. I was going to mount it like here somewhere, but I started to look around a little bit yesterday. And really on the engine, the highest point of the cooling system should be those steam ports. So I can actually mount it right in here. And if you see where the steam ports are, they're below, they're basically in line with that bolt on the pulley. So this is above it all. And these hinges, when the hood's actually bolted up, they should be like up here, give or take. So that should work perfect right there. So I should be able to just self-tap the one side of this tank here, and I'll just bend up some 3/8 and make a bracket to hold the other side. And that should work perfect. So initially I was going to run it to the low pressure side of the water pump, the heater hose fittings, but I've got a lot of hot tubing right there, and I don't really feel like melting a coolant line or anything like that. Sure, I could use steel braided, but I have twice now had a steel braided line rest up against a header for too long and melt through it. So I'm going to try to avoid that. I have seen people successfully, as far as I know, run theirs to the lower radiator hose. I could weld a fitting off that. I'm not going to do that because I've got this drain fitting right here. I'm just going to pull that out and put like a barb fitting in, and the tank will be right above that. We'll just go straight down. So that's kind of what we're doing today, is just getting hopefully the cooling system finished up, and I won't have to actually pull the water pump off. Oh, I did get this new steam port kit off Amazon because the engine did have these block offs on all four corners. So I picked that up. It was like 22 bucks. It seems to be just a knockoff version of the ICT one, except this is a China CT, something like that. There's a joke there somewhere. Seems to be pretty decent. You definitely have to put it together before putting it on the engine because these ends don't swivel like some of the straight AN fittings, like how this end can swivel. But aside from that, it seems to be pretty decent. The port from this is just going to run into the side port of this tank here. And then hopefully all the changes we've made to the cooling system should keep this thing pretty darn cool. I don't know if I ever showed you guys the actual hoses. So just got a silicone 90 off that. Little piece of aluminum. This coupler here was an absolute pain. Let me tell you why. This is a silicone 45 that goes from 1.5 to 1 3/4. Frame of reference here. This one is a straight through 1.5 silicone 45. This was like $8 or $9 on Amazon. I looked everywhere. Well, no, there was a couple places on eBay selling them, but they were coming straight from China and they wouldn't be here for like a month. This is the only one I could find that would be here within a week. And after shipping, this little fucker was $42. My God. But it turned out pretty good. Everything seems to be fitting pretty well. Here's how that one fits. Everything's nice and happy, and these ones won't start to rust. They look pretty good. They'll dissipate heat that little bit better, even though, you know, got an iron block, so what does it really matter? Anyway, the plan for today is to try to get the expansion tank and the recovery tank mounted, probably on each corner here, give or take. I know for sure I want to put the recovery tank here. And then aside from that, I think all the hard parts for the cooling system is done. And then the only thing left to do is wire up the fan to a relay, which shouldn't be an issue. I've got a couple distribution blocks here I can rob battery power from and then just run it to a nice relay. I really do want to go through and clean up the wiring on this fender because the only things really from the chassis up here are just the headlights, so I don't need a ton of this wiring. A lot of this stuff can be cleaned up and just made to look a lot nicer because every time I pop the hood on this thing, I'm just like, golly, this thing looks like trash. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's start to get to work on this thing. Alright, so I've hopefully got this thing sitting where it's gonna live. I just have one self-tapper right here holding it in place. I'm hoping that it should clear the hood, because these should sit about like that. If they don't, I'll just have to notch the inside of the hood where the frame support is, like right in here. But this is all flat, so it should clear it. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, now I've got to just make a little support bar. There's a drilled and tapped hole right there, and there's another one right there I could run something to, and that should hold it. Either one should work. This one. But yeah, that should be about how it'll sit. Hopefully you can see that it is higher than the steam port right there. That should give you a pretty good idea, because that thing's only a little bit below the coupler for the throttle body, and that's obviously way below the throttle body, so that will be the highest point of the cooling system. And then, like I said, we're gonna fill everything through that. But car's almost ready to get back on the road. Basically just have to finish up the cooling system. Oh, I haven't shown you guys this yet. I plumbed up a 4-port Mac valve for the wastegate and turbo and everything, so we'll actually have control over the boost instead of just being along for the ride. Because before, this was my boost control. Pressure from the turbo went to both bottom and top ports of the wastegate simultaneously, so it did pretty good. It surprisingly got up on boost somewhat quickly. I'm hoping now being able to like direct everything right to the top to get it up to boost really quickly, and then, you know, balance it out. But this kept it right around 20 pounds, thankfully. So I'm probably, while I'm learning the Mac valve, I'll probably start with it targeting like 15 and then kind of try to feather it in. I know that with the 4-port Mac valve, a small change can make a big change in boost, so I don't want to accidentally fucking send this thing to the moon. I'm gonna try to target like 15 or so starting, and then we can feather it up and learn how much change in duty cycle changes the boost. But yeah, that should be good there. Still have to mount it and then run the wires. I'm just going to do the old sloppy mechanics trick and steal the reference signal from the map sensor instead of doing a dome sensor. And then I think I should have the, yeah, right there's the wire for the horn. I'm going to use the horn button as the scramble, hopefully, if it'll work. It should work, but that is my plan for that. So yeah, I'm going to whip up a bracket for this real quick. Got this bracket all made up. Seems to be doing pretty good, holds pretty good. Still need to paint that up and the brackets for the radiator, but I'm not real worried about that right now. So I ended up just getting this little fitting to go to the steam port, so I just need to run the line for that. I think I've got some left over. Well, I know I've got some right here that I'm not going to be using. This was going to my manual boost controller in the car that didn't really seem to make a difference. One other thing I want to get done is to finally put a catch can on this thing, because this whole time I've never had a catch can on it. So like usual, I turned to Amazon and started looking for catch cans, and I came across this one because I wanted one with AN fittings, because I've used the ones where you just like slip the hose over things and they work fine, but I'm trying to be a little bougie here, you know, step up the game a little bit. So I figured I'd just spend all that Dogecoin money and go to AN fittings for this. And it does have a little baffle up there. It seems to be pretty decent quality. Like, I'm not gonna say it's amazing, but for the $24 that it was, I'm content with it. And it has this big ass filter to go on top. Sorry for swearing. I know that there's some of you guys that have real delicate sensibilities and have full-blown panic attacks every time someone says a swear word. It's a pretty nice setup. A little drain under there. Real weird drain too. Because I'm still running stock valve covers, the way that I'm going to get away with going to AN is right here. Let me show you this. I'm sure there's a few of you that might have not known about these, but this is a 10 AN to like oil cap kind of adapter. Screws right in just like that. Boom, now you got 10 AN vented valve covers. And then for the other side, basically the same deal, but this is for the PCV. It'll just right in there. Just like that. Once again, 10 AN vented valve cover. So I initially wanted this kind of like front and center right here. Be kind of doopy with it, but I think what I'm gonna do is probably tuck it
like right here perhaps. Do something like that. I don't know. I'm gonna look around a little bit. I'll probably just self-tap it somewhere and we'll pick it up. All right, hey, look at that. Can't really see anything. There you go, you can kind of see it there. So all that's left now is to make the lines. Shouldn't be too big of an issue. This one I'm just gonna have run right next to the fuel rail here. Probably go under this fitting and then probably to the top port. And then that one I'm gonna go under the charge pipe and then kind of loop around to the bottom port. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. So I've already got this one marked where I need to cut it. This is some spare hose that I had that was a little too short, so give myself a little extra length there to make sure the bends are comfortable, and I can always trim it down more later. So just need to get this thing cut, then we'll start throwing this hose together. Alright, got the hoses made and everything's all plumbed. I think it turned out pretty decent. This line I had to make kind of tight so that I didn't have to worry about it falling into the belt. I think it's gonna work just fine. This one, I think if I were to redo that bottom one, I'd put a 90 down there so that it can go basically straight into it, but I initially, like I said, I was originally going to mount it right in the middle here, so I was going to go straight into it, but it just worked out more conveniently to put it there. But it'll work. It's going to stay away from the belt and everything there. I might put a zip tie on it to the lower rad hose just to ensure that it's going to stay off of it, but it should work fine. I also debated on zip tying these together just to make it look a little bit nicer, but again, I don't think I'm going to need to. So yeah. Made some pretty good progress with the car the last couple weeks. It's real close to getting back on the road. I think the only thing left to do is just hose clamps on everything. I need to get a 1/2-inch hose for the expansion tank and then fill it up, bleed it, and do a little bit of tuning to see how this is gonna I gotta wire up the MAC valve also and get that dialed in, so it's gonna be a little bit longer. But aside from that, I think that's probably gonna do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and clicking that bell. I'll see you next time.